Imagine the world of the 1880s. In the early hours of the morning, the only sound echoing through city streets is the clash of iron horseshoes against stone. Horse-drawn carriages move slowly through narrow roads. Transportation is slow, it is noisy, and everything depends on animal power. For centuries, people have relied on the same method. Horses get tired, carriages break down, roads are muddy. Traveling from one city to another does not take hours. It takes days. Distance limits people's lives. It determines where they can live, where they can work, and how far they can go. The Industrial Revolution has transformed factories. Production has accelerated. Cities are beginning to grow. But transportation cannot keep up with this change. Rail systems exist, yes. Trains are powerful, but they are not free. Where the rails go is where you can go. For the first time, humanity faces a quiet question. What if we could go wherever we wanted on our own? That question begins to echo in the minds of two men in a small workshop in Germany. What is being developed in that workshop will be neither a train nor a traditional horse carriage. It will not need rails, it will not rely on animals. And for the first time in history, it will offer people individual and independent movement. This story begins with the Daimler Motor Carriage. Behind this vehicle are two important names, Gottlieb Daimler and Wilhelm Maybach. But what makes them special is not a dream of building an automobile. In fact, the automobile is not even their primary goal. Gottlieb Daimler believed that internal combustion engines were the key to the future. But the engines of his time were unacceptable to him. They were large, heavy, and usable only in stationary machines, confined to factories, bolted in place, unable to move. Daimler's idea was far more radical. The engine had to be small, it had to be light, and it had to run at high speeds. In other words, the engine had to be portable. This is where Wilhelm Maybach comes in. Maybach is the one who turns theory into reality. He is almost obsessive about details. He reduces components millimeter by millimeter, improves efficiency, cuts weight, and turns the engine into something truly portable. Together, they believe this. Engines should not exist only in factories. They should exist in everyday life. At the time, this idea was revolutionary, because for the first time, an engine was about to merge with personal transportation. At the beginning of the century, steam ruled the world. Steam engines powered trains and factories. But steam had serious problems. It required water, it took time to heat up, and it needed heavy boilers. This is where Daimler's difference became clear. The engine had to start instantly, it had to be light, and it had to run at high revolutions. With this mindset, in 1885, Daimler and Maybach developed a single-cylinder, gasoline-powered, high-speed engine. It was smaller than anything seen before, but they did not place it directly into a car. First, it had to be tested, so they mounted the engine onto a two-wheeled vehicle. The result went down in history as the Reitwagen. Today, we call it the first motorcycle, but at the time, it was simply an experiment. Proof. The engine worked, it moved, and most importantly, it advanced on its own, without human power. When this test succeeded, it was time for the real step. 1 year later, in 1886, Daimler and Maybach made a much bolder decision. They would place the engine into a four-wheeled vehicle. But they did not design a new vehicle from scratch. Instead, they used the most familiar form of transportation of the time, a horse carriage. The result became one of the first true examples of what we now call an automobile, the Daimler Motor Carriage. From the outside, it looked like an ordinary carriage, a wooden chassis, thin wheels, a simple structure. But there was one crucial difference. There was no horse in front or behind. Its technical specifications may seem primitive today. It had a single-cylinder engine. It produced about 1.1 horsepower. Its top speed was around 16 kilometers per hour. It used chain-driven rear wheels, and instead of a steering wheel, it had a lever system. But this vehicle was more than a prototype, because it moved by itself. It could operate continuously, and most importantly, it was not tied to rails. This was a mental breaking point in the history of transportation. For the first time, a person could control their own vehicle without animal power. For the first time, movement became an individual form of freedom. And the most interesting part is this. Daimler did not even see this vehicle as an automobile. In his mind, it was merely a demonstration of what an engine could do. The engine was a universal power source, one that could be installed in a car, a boat, a train, or future machines not yet imagined. This perspective marked the beginning of a vision that would reshape automotive history. And at this very moment, another name was about to enter the story. That same year in Germany, a different three-wheeled vehicle appeared, and the title of the first automobile would be debated for decades. But that was the second part of the story. The year 1886 is one of the most critical turning points in automotive history, because in that same year, another inventor in Germany presented his own solution. His name was Karl Benz. Benz's vehicle had three wheels, structurally simpler, and it was designed directly as an automobile. Benz was not adapting an engine to a vehicle, he was building the vehicle around the engine. For this reason, his solution was clearer and more practical. Today, many history books give Karl Benz the title of the first automobile, and technically, that claim is not wrong. But there is one critical difference between Benz's vehicle and the Daimler Motor Carriage. Karl Benz built a vehicle. Gottlieb Daimler introduced an idea. In Daimler's view, the automobile was not the final goal. The engine was. Yes, it could power a car, but it could also power a boat, a locomotive, or machines yet to be imagined. That is why the Daimler Motor Carriage should be seen not merely as a vehicle, but as the manifesto of the motorized age. This perspective would shape the future direction of the automotive industry. But like every revolution, it was not immediately accepted. People viewed this new machine with suspicion. Habits are powerful, and the unknown always creates fear. Motor vehicles were noisy. The smell of gasoline was unpleasant. They looked far more uncontrolled than horses. Some people found them dangerous. Others found them outright evil. These fears extended beyond individuals. Governments were cautious as well. In England, the famous Red Flag Act required a person to walk in front of motor vehicles carrying a red flag to warn others. This law effectively reduced motor vehicle speeds to walking pace. But technology does not retreat. Engines continued to improve. Engineers solved problems. Better brakes were developed. More stable chassis were designed. Steering systems emerged, and most importantly, engines became more reliable. These advancements proved that Daimler's vision was correct. The Daimler Motor Carriage was flawed, but that is exactly what a prototype should be. World-changing inventions never start perfect. They begin as ideas, then mature step by step. Daimler's company grew over time. Engine production increased. Engines were used not only on land, but also at sea. Wilhelm Maybach played a decisive role in the engineering side of this evolution. His design philosophy would later form the foundation of the luxury automobile. More powerful engines, quieter operation, more comfortable driving. These qualities transformed the automobile from a simple machine into a living space. And that path leads directly to modern automotive giants. The brand we know today as Mercedes-Benz is the result of this technical and philosophical legacy. Names have changed, logos have evolved, but the core idea remains the same. The engine is a tool that expands human freedom. At this point, we must ask, did the Daimler Motor Carriage merely introduce a new way to travel? No, it changed cities. With motor vehicles, people began living farther from their workplaces. Cities expanded horizontally. Suburbs emerged. The perception of time changed. Distance was no longer measured by walking, but by engines. Trade accelerated. Logistics was born. Goods could reach distant markets. This single vehicle indirectly laid one of the foundations of the modern economy. And it all began in 1886, with a wooden chassis, chain-driven, one-horsepower machine. At the time, no one fully understood what it meant, because great changes usually begin quietly. People watching it back then thought, this will pass, but it didn't, because this machine fundamentally changed humanity's relationship with movement. Speed was no longer just a physical value. It became a way of life. Today, as we drive on highways, measure distances in hours, and complain about traffic, we are living with the legacy of the Daimler Motor Carriage. This vehicle was only a beginning, but it was a beginning in the right direction. The Daimler Motor Carriage was not fast, not powerful, not comfortable, but it had one thing: the right vision. Gottlieb Daimler did not try to build a car. He tried to remove the limits of the engine. And that is why, for more than a century, motorized vehicles have remained at the center of our lives. If the Daimler Motor Carriage had never existed, cities would not look the way they do today. Global trade would not have developed at this pace. Modern transportation would not be where it is now. This is not a story about speed. This is a story about vision. And it all began with a carriage that moved forward, without horses.